before the great cities rose and before empires bore their names. There was a fertile valley, radiant and full of promise. Yet behind that wealth lay a hidden darkness. A silent cry rose from the earth to the heavens, the cry of injustice, cruelty, and wickedness. And the Lord heard it. The skies began to change. Clouds gathered near. The air grew heavy, and time itself seemed to hold its breath. This was the beginning of a judgment, but also the beginning of a story the world would never forget. For there, amid the desert, when all seemed lost, a man stood up. His name was Abraham, called by God, guided by faith, and bearing witness to heaven descending upon the earth, not with peace, but with fire. Abraham stood upon a hill, gazing toward the horizon. The wind lifted his cloak, and his silver hair danced in the desert's warm breeze. His eyes reflected serenity, yet contained a depth of knowledge few dare to carry. He heard the voice of the Lord. Abraham, leave your homeland and your kin, and go to the land I will show you. I will make you a great nation. Faith was his compass, obedience his path. Accompanying him was his nephew Lot, a young man filled with ambition, drawn by the wealth and fertile lands to the south. But as time passed, the herds grew larger, the servants increased, and inevitable conflict arose between Abraham's shepherds and those of Lot. One morning, as he walked among the tents, Lot said, "Uncle, it is unjust that our servants live in strife. This land is vast. Let us part ways, each taking a path." Abraham nodded gently and answered wisely, "Let there be no strife between you and me, for we are brothers. This whole land lies before you. Choose where you will go, and I will journey to the other side." Lot lifted his eyes. To the south stretched a fertile valley, like a carpet of emeralds. There lay the Jordan Valley, home to the two cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. They sparkled in the distance with towers and hanging gardens like jewels amid the desert. Then Lot spoke, "With certainty I choose the Jordan Valley. There I will prosper." Abraham silently consented, watching him depart with his tents and herds toward cities that were prosperous yet steeped in iniquity. Days later, while Abraham was alone, the voice of the Lord echoed once more, "Lift your eyes, all that you see, I will give to you and your descendants forever. I will make your descendants as numerous as the dust of the earth, so that if anyone can count the dust, they can count your offspring." Moved, Abraham knelt down, tears streaming down his face. The storm-filled sky now opened with a golden light shining directly upon him. This was the mark of a sacred promise. Meanwhile, Lot entered the gates of Sodom, surrounded by wealth, applause, and curious eyes. The men of the city were handsome and proud, the women vain and provocative. At every corner, statues of gods were erected. In every square, festivals were held, where joy was worshipped as the supreme deity. Yet Lot did not see all of this, or perhaps he chose not to see. In the quiet of night, Abraham walked among the tents under the moonlight when he looked up and saw a column of smoke on the distant horizon. It was thin, almost imperceptible, yet it signaled that something was burning even before judgment fell. He closed his eyes and prayed. In silence, the story, not yet revealed to all, began to unfold. At dawn, Abraham built an altar to the Lord, as he customarily did when settling in a new land. Upon the stacked stones, he placed wood and offerings. The fire rose like invisible incense, the aged patriarch closed his eyes and murmured, "You are just, O Lord of heaven, and also merciful." Meanwhile, in Sodom, Lot struggled to maintain his integrity. He was a righteous man amid a blind city, his heart in the stillness of the night. Abraham walked among the tents under the moonlight when he looked up and saw a column of smoke on the distant horizon. It was thin, almost imperceptible, yet it signaled that something was burning even before judgment was passed. He closed his eyes and prayed. In silence, the story, not yet revealed to all, began to unfold. The next morning, Abraham built an altar to the Lord, as he customarily did when settling in a new land. Upon the stacked stones, he placed wood and offerings. The fire rose to the heavens like invisible incense. The aged patriarch closed his eyes and murmured, "You are just, O Lord of heaven, and also merciful." Meanwhile, in Sodom, Lot struggled to maintain his integrity. He was a righteous man amidst a blinded city. His heart was heavy. At the table, his daughters recounted stories of what they had witnessed in the squares. His wife, increasingly enchanted by the lavish life, silently judged him by his appearance. While trying on fine linen garments, she said, "Not everything is wicked, Lot. Perhaps we should adapt." He gave no reply. He simply went out to the courtyard and looked northward, toward the hills where he knew Abraham still remained. The nights in Sodom were very long. The feasts lasted until dawn. Children were taught not to disdain kindness. The elders were mocked. Justice was forbidden, and the heavens were listening. Above, invisible to human eyes, the angels walked. The time for intercession was near, and with it the weight of judgment. In the darkness before dawn, thunder echoed across the hills. Lot suddenly awoke, feeling a weight upon his chest that he could not explain. In his dream, he saw fire falling from the sky and heard screams echoing through stone walls. His hands trembled. He looked at his sleeping wife, then at his daughters. Something was about to happen, something greater than he could imagine. Far away, Abraham was also waking. His gaze was fixed to the south, and then the sky began to move. Dawn was approaching, and with it the footsteps of eternity. The heavens could no longer remain silent. Judgment would soon come. The sky could not remain silent any longer. Judgment would soon come. The timid morning light crept over the walls of Sodom, but the golden sunlight barely touched the city, as if even the light hesitated to stay there. The streets were still filthy from the night's festivities, now filled with voices, mocking laughter, and hurried footsteps. There was a haste that led to sin. The markets opened with luxurious goods. Women adorned with gold jewelry and painted eyes openly flirted at the corners. Children ran among the merchants, mimicking the vices of adults. The city overflowed with vanity, lust, and mockery. He looked from the window, his heart heavy. The elders still believed there was hope for that city. His daughters, now young women, gazed at the city girls with fascination. His wife spent more time with the local women, listening to their secrets and learning their ways of life. He prayed, but his voice seemed to be lost in the void. That same morning, a few days' walk away, Abraham sat at the entrance of his tent, as he often did in the most peaceful hours of the day. The morning breeze was gentle. Suddenly, he looked up. 3 men were approaching. There was something different about them. Their faces were serene. Yet their presence carried authority, as if the heavens themselves were with them. Abraham ran to meet them and bowed low to the ground. "Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant without rest." He quickly commanded them to prepare bread, meat, and milk. The three men sat beneath the tree's shade. While they ate, Abraham stood solemnly. Then one of them spoke with a voice that pierced the soul. "Where is Sarah, your wife?" Abraham answered, "She is in the tent." Then the visitor said, "I will return to you at the appointed time, and Sarah will bear a son inside the tent." Sarah heard and laughed quietly. Then the guest asked, "Why did Sarah laugh? Is anything too difficult for the Lord?" Abraham recognized that they were no ordinary men. They were angels. One among them was the Lord in visible form. As they rose to leave, they looked toward Sodom. The Lord's face grew serious. Then he spoke in a voice that the wind could carry to the trees. "Shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do?" The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great. Their sin is very grievous. Upon hearing this, Abraham approached with fear and compassion. "Will you destroy the righteous with the wicked? Suppose there are 50 righteous within the city. Will you then destroy the whole place and not spare it for their sake? Even if I find 50 righteous, I will forgive the whole city for their sake. What if there are 45, 40, 30, 20? I will not destroy it. Lord, I beg you, do not be angry if I speak once more. What if there are only 10 righteous?" The man looked upon him with eyes that saw the future. "I will not destroy it for the sake of 10. Then the angels departed. A profound silence enveloped Abraham. "But what if there are 45, 40, 30, or even 20 righteous people? I will not destroy it. Lord, I beseech you, please do not be angry if I speak once more. What if there are only 10 righteous people?" The man looked at him with eyes that foresaw the future. "I will not destroy it for the sake of 10. And then the angels departed. A profound silence enveloped Abraham. The patriarch sat alone, gazing toward the distant valley. The sun rose higher, bathing the peaceful plains in golden light. But he knew the sky was about to answer the call of the earth. Meanwhile, in Sodom, Lot was sitting at the city gate. That was where the judges gathered, where leaders spoke and enacted laws. Lot tried to influence with justice, but his voice was stifled. The voice of righteousness was silenced. Yet neither did they consider him an equal. Late that afternoon, 2 men passed through the gate of Sodom. Their clothes were clean, their faces serene, and their eyes kindled a fire no mortal could quench. They walked with steady steps, and even the dogs fell silent as they passed by. Lot saw them and immediately recognized who they were. They were not ordinary men. He rose, bowed, and said, "Gentlemen, I invite you into my house to wash your feet and rest for the night. Tomorrow morning you shall depart safely." They nodded, but the city would not let them pass unnoticed. At night, when silence enveloped the homes, footsteps echoed through the streets. Men from all over the city, young and old, surrounded Lot's house. Their faces were filled with blind desire and corruption. They shouted, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out so we may know them." Lot turned away and closed the door. His heart pounded like a drum within his chest. "Brothers, I beg you, do not do this wicked thing." They mocked him. "Step aside. Who are you to judge us? You have come to live among us as a foreigner, and now you presume to be a judge." They advanced, trying to break down the door, but suddenly a dazzling light burst forth from the entrance. The angels pulled Lot inside and shut the door with supernatural power. Outside, the men were struck blind. Confused, they staggered and shouted, fighting one another, unable to find the door they once knew so well. Inside the house, an angel stared intently at Lot. "Is there anyone else here, your sons-in-law, your sons, your daughters? Bring them out of this place, for we are to destroy this city. Its cry for mercy has reached the Lord, and he has sent us to bring judgment upon it." Lot's face grew pale. The time for mercy was nearly at an end. He left the house with hurried steps and a worried countenance. The darkness of night weighed heavily upon the city like a foreboding sign. Every shadow seemed to watch him. He ran through the narrow streets, avoiding drunken men still staggering from their feasts. He knocked on the doors of his sons-in-law, urgently waking them. "Rise up. The Lord is about to destroy this city. We must leave immediately." But the young men mocked him. One laughed loudly while the other swirled a wine glass between his fingers. "Destroy it now. It's too late for dreams and too early for stories. Go home. We will talk about this tomorrow." Lot pleaded, but the door slammed shut before him, alone in the street. He turned back as he entered. The angels stood ready. One of them extended his hand and said, "Hurry, take your wife and daughters who are here, so that you will not perish for the injustice of the city." They still hesitated. Lot's wife's heart trembled. His daughters wept. Lot himself trembled. Then the angels took their hands and led them out. As I passed through the gate, the heavens roared. Thunder tore through the sky like a blazing sword. Above, a brilliant light began to descend. It was no ordinary fire. It was judgment. An angel shouted, "Flee for your lives. Do not look back. Do not stop anywhere along the way. Escape to the mountains, so that you are not consumed." Lot was preparing to go. "No, please. I, a servant of the Lord, have found favor in his sight, and he has shown great mercy to me. But I cannot flee to the mountains. I will die on the way. Let me escape to that small town. It is insignificant. Let me live there." The angel looked at him. "See, I have also granted you this. Go, but be swift. I cannot do more until you arrive." The sun began to rise. "Go home. We will speak of this tomorrow." Lot tried to plead, but the door slammed shut before him. Alone on the street, he ran back inside. The angels stood there. One of them reached out his hand and said, "Hurry, take your wife and daughters who are here, so that you do not perish because of the city's injustice." They still hesitated. Lot's wife's heart trembled. The daughters wept. Lot trembled as well. Then the angels took their hands and pulled them outside. As I stepped through the gate, the sky roared. Thunder tore across the heavens like a blazing sword. On the summit, a beam of light began to descend. It was no ordinary fire. It was judgment. An angel shouted, "Flee to save your life. Do not look back. Do not stop anywhere along the way. Run to the mountains to avoid being consumed by fire." Lot was preparing to leave. "No, please, I, a servant of the Lord, have found favor in his sight, and he has shown great mercy to me. But I cannot run to the mountain. I will perish on the way. Let me flee to that small town. It is insignificant. Let me live there." The angel looked at him. "Very well, I have granted you this as well. Go now, but hurry. I can do no more until you arrive there." The sun began to rise. The sky, once purple, was now filled with ashes and embers. As Lot and his family arrived in the small town of Zoar, the world behind them was about to collapse. That was when it happened. Flames fell from the sky like rivers of glowing coal. The earth shook violently, towers were split in two. The walls of Sodom crumbled like sand. The fire of judgment consumed homes, marketplaces, and temples. Screams echoed throughout the valley, but no one heeded them. And amidst it all, Lot's wife paused and looked back for a moment. The walls of Sodom collapsed like sand. The fire of judgment consumed the houses, the marketplaces, and the temples. Cries echoed throughout the valley, yet no one heeded them. And amid all this, Lot's wife paused for a moment and looked back. Her eyes were searching for something. Perhaps her children, perhaps her past, perhaps the jewelry and the luxuries she had left behind. But in that glance, there was not only longing but also attachment. Then, before the raging fire and stormy sky, she was transformed. Her body stiffened, frozen in time, her eyes wide open, fixed upon Sodom, a solitary pillar of salt upon the burning plain. Lot knelt down. His daughters screamed but were powerless. From above, amidst the blazing clouds, the angels watched in silence. The Lord's judgment was complete. On the northern hills, Abraham awoke to the noise. He left his tent and ran to the hilltop. From there, he saw smoke rising from the ground like the smoke of a great furnace. His eyes welled with tears. He prayed in silence. The Lord remembered Abraham and, for his sake, spared Lot from destruction for many days. The smoke continued to rise thick and black as a reminder to the world of what happens when evil goes too far. Sodom, the small town where Lot sought refuge, became a silent sanctuary. The people there gazed in awe at the burning horizon, afraid to ask what had truly occurred. There were many rumors, much gossip, but no one dared to approach. The devastated plain, the mourning of many could not last long. The steps, the whispers, the memories of his wife all turned to salt. Everything became an unbearable burden. His daughters walked silently, eyes cast downward. One morning, Lot said, "Let us go up the mountain. Sodom is no longer a safe place." With little food stored, they climbed the hill. They found shelter in an isolated cave, far from everything. Deep silence and cold nights. No laughter, only memories. Lot's daughters, grieving for all they had known, destroyed, and believing the world had been burned to ashes, began to fear for the future of their father's lineage. The eldest said, "There is no man left on this earth to come to us by the usual ways of the world. Let us offer wine to our father and lie with him so that we may preserve our lineage." That night they made Lot drunk. He did not notice when the eldest daughter lay beside him. The next day, they did the same with the youngest. Thus, each conceived a child by their father. The eldest was named Moab, father of the Moabites. The youngest was Ben-Ammi, father of the Ammonites. Even after judgment, the echoes of trauma remained. The sins of Sodom were destroyed, but the effects of corruption still echoed among the survivors. On the scorched plains, where once prosperous cities of the valley stood, silence now prevailed. No birds flew, no grasses sprouted. The earth was blackened, cracked, soaked with the fire of judgment. It was as if time had forsaken that place. An open scar among the hills, an eternal witness to the Lord's wrath against unrepentant sin. Meanwhile, in distant lands, others heard the rumors as well. Caravans passing by Sodom carried tales of destruction from the heavens. Some said the gods were angry, others claimed a prophet had cursed the cities, but few dared to speak the name of the Lord of Abraham. Abraham reflected in his tent, watching the sky, and even amid tragedy, his faith remained strong. The Lord had spared Lot, yet the memory of the cries from the cities remained deeply etched in him. That lesson was engraved upon his spirit. The righteous walk with God even when the world is corrupted. Meanwhile, on the mountain, Lot aged swiftly. Life in the harsh cave mirrored his soul. He did not know what his daughters had done for him. The past days were merely survival, long nights haunted by memories and regret. He who once sat among the city judges now lived among stones and silence. His daughters raised their children. Apart from all else, Moab and Ben-Ammi grew like wild children, without the presence of experienced mothers, lacking education and guidance. The seeds sown in despair will in time grow into nations hostile to Israel. This mistake, though born of good intention, will bring consequences for many generations. In heaven, the angels silently witness the destruction. The task is complete, yet the Lord's heart is not joyful over the ruin. His justice is perfect, yet filled with sorrow. For the Creator does not delight in the death of the wicked, but rejoices when they turn back and live. And at that time, in other places on earth, kingdoms arise, men exalt themselves, towers are built, empires born of pride. Sodom and Gomorrah have become legend, a warning, a shadow in the memory of nations. Yet few understand the true cause of this destruction. It is more than immorality. It is the conscious rejection of good. It is pride amidst the cries of the weak. It is violence, oppression, and complete lack of repentance. The Lord waited, warned, sent signs, and finally executed judgment. Lot's descendants scattered, forming tribes and growing strong, yet the memory of destruction never fully faded from their land. On quiet nights, campfires still cast shadows in caves, and elders recount stories of skies once aflame. Abraham continued his journey. Sarah would conceive a son as promised, and the story would turn a new direction. But the echo of Sodom and Gomorrah would resound through the scriptures, the prophets, and nations until the time of the Messiah. Many things would fade from the sacred texts. His existence reflects a righteous man who escaped death but lost all that was dear. He became a symbol of salvation through mercy, but also a warning to those who flirt with the world. In the sands of time, the wind began to blow once more. On the ruins remained only ashes, yet between heaven and earth, justice was fulfilled. A few generations later, the name Sodom was no longer spoken of. In tents, palaces, and on mountains, parents told their children stories of a people who defied the Almighty and vanished from the earth. Centuries later, the prophets would speak and say, "Remember Sodom," and those words would instill fear. But there was something else still. A seed sprouted in silence. 2 descendants of Lot, though born of turmoil, encountered unexpectedly the plan of the Lord. Among the Moabites, a woman named Ruth was born. She abandoned the idols of her people to follow the God of Israel. becoming the ancestor of King David and centuries later, the ancestor of the Messiah. Even amidst the ruins of downfall, God could still redeem. The city of Sodom was consumed by fire, but the story did not end in ashes. Amid judgment, mercy blossomed, as if behind the veil of fire and smoke, an invisible thread was weaving. The plan of eternal salvation. The sinful cities fell, but the promise remained. And now, far away, a boy is soon to be born, a child full of promise, a laughter named Isaac. There will come a time to laugh, but the memory of tears will never be forgotten. Time passes. The dust of destruction is swept away by the wind, but the memory of Sodom and Gomorrah remains deeply etched in the Bible and the heart. The ashes of judgment become an eternal symbol of divine justice. The prophets continually use them as a warning. The Lord himself, in centuries to come, will mention these cities as an example of final judgment. Yet in the midst of the desert, while the world continues its own course, Abraham witnessed another part of the promise fulfilled. Sarah conceived and bore a son. Abraham named him Isaac because Sarah laughed, and now all would laugh with her. The birth of the boy brought light to the tent and hope to a story of trials and miracles. God is both judge and. The boy had brought light into the tent and hope to a story full of trials and miracles. God is the judge and the God who fulfills his promises. As life renewed, the memory of the destroyed cities became a necessary contrast to God's holiness. Yet the world remained unchanged. Nations exalted themselves. People wandered astray in their pride, and the descendants of Lot, the Moabites and the Ammonites, began to take shape as settled peoples. They built cities, established altars to foreign gods, and inherited not only Lot's bloodline but also the marks of a turbulent origin. And as foretold, conflict with Abraham's descendants would soon arise. The promised lineage and the wounded lineage would walk side by side, sometimes in peace, often in war. From heaven, the Most High watched, his justice unshakable, his mercy extended, his plan unwavering. Sodom was condemned, but it was not the only city worthy of destruction. Everywhere, human hearts remained corrupt, bent toward evil. Yet the Lord was patient. He awaited the appointed time, for even judgment leads to salvation. Music in Abraham's tent. Isaac grew under his father's care. He was strong, curious, and full of questions. At night, he looked up at the stars and asked, "Father, is this the sky that God revealed when he spoke to you?" Abraham smiled. "Yes, my son, and that very sky heard the cries of Sodom." "Does God still judge today?" Abraham asked. He silently looked upward. Words are spoken, always spoken, but not everyone wishes to listen. The stories of cities destroyed begin to be told, alongside the promises of the Almighty God. Isaac grew with the understanding that it is God himself, the righteous destroyer, who also builds through love. And Abraham, an old man yet full of faith, would set up altars wherever he went, reminding the world that there is one God over all nations, and no cry goes unheard by him. Once, Abraham took Isaac up to the hilltop where the wind blew stronger and silence enveloped them. There, he pointed southward, toward the land where the valley cities once stood. Those were Sodom and Gomorrah. Isaac frowned, curious. What happened to them? Then Abraham answered solemnly, "They were consumed by fire because they forgot the Lord, because they chose evil and called it good." because they heard the cry of the righteous and responded with mockery. Could God destroy them again? Abraham knelt before his son, placed his hand upon his shoulder, and replied, "It is the Lord, the judge, who is also the forgiver. He grants time, gives signs, sends messengers. But when one chooses to reject the light and embrace darkness, judgment will come." Isaac was silent, absorbing every word as if engraving an eternal secret upon his soul. In the years that followed, Abraham's descendants multiplied greatly. Nations rose, peoples waged war, kings ascended and fell. Yet the name Sodom remained like an ancestral scar, a name forbidden to be used in vain. Prophets like Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel recalled the example of the destroyed cities. Even in the New Testament, the apostles used Sodom as a symbol of rebellion and doubt. Abraham, now aged, gazed upon the sunset. Darkness stretched over the mountains, and he heard Isaac's laughter from afar, a clear sound, carrying hope for a new era. He rose and went to the stone altar. He kindled the fire, closed his eyes, and prayed, "O Lord, may my descendants never forget. May my children remember your name. Though they should fall, let them return to you and never become like those lost cities." The sky then turned golden, as if the Lord himself affirmed his prayer. A gentle breeze blew through the tents, and a bright star shone in the southern sky.